page. The word wimp is usually used only in relation to husbands, but I think the word is also suitable for wives in this day and age. We women work in positions that were only performed by men hundreds of years ago. For example, we even go to war with men, so the word wimp is also suitable for us wives. Yes, for thousands of years we women stayed home, were housewives, and did the lion's share of child rearing, but many of our husbands went to brothels, were seduced by neighbors, or were ladies' men, and so on. Of course, not every husband was such an unfaithful bastard, but there were enough of them to fill all of history with them. Therefore, I believe that today the word wimp is neutral and has no gender. If the word wimp is neutral, as I explained, then I was definitely a wimp. I was born Beth Clark in this Midwestern city into a middle-class family. I have an older brother. I attended a local high school at a time when women's soccer was less popular in the States. However, my school was a pioneer in this sport. I started playing this sport and was a good free defender on the team. I became an excellent free kick taker. I scored some very important goals from free kicks. I also scored a penalty. I was known for my very strong free kicks and penalties. I then went to college to study business administration. I played on the women's soccer team in college and scored my hard free kicks and penalties, and the goalkeepers didn't like me. Sometimes I ran with the strikers, midfielders, and scored strong goals far from the goal, and the audience admired my goals. I loved playing soccer and was a skilled free safety, but I wasn't a member of the U.S. women's national soccer team. I dated guys, but didn't find the right man. I was a blue-eyed, tall, golden blonde girl with C-cup breasts. Besides being active in sports, I was a good student and received good job offers in my hometown. I worked hard and got promotions and salary increases. At one of the meetings with representatives of other companies, I met John Ordenham. He worked for a partner company in the same city where I lived. John was an attractive, charming man. We met several times and felt the chemistry between us. We started dating and fell in love. He asked me to become his wife, and I happily agreed. John was a tall, dark-haired, blue-eyed man, and he was divorced. He told me that he and his first wife did not get along, so they divorced amicably, and they did not have children. I have not received any information about John's first wife since she was a Southern girl and returned to Alabama after her divorce. We dated for a long time, and John did not show any negative traits, so I was happy to become his wife and did not doubt his words. We had a big wedding with parents, relatives, and friends. We bought a beautiful house together in the suburbs. We were in love and made love in every room of our house. I was happy with John. I stopped taking the pills, and we had 2 sons. Our first son was George, named after John's father. A year later, we had Ed, named after my father. Even though I was home with the kids, our financial situation remained excellent as my husband received promotions and became the local CEO of his company. He worked hard and was successful. We usually took a vacation to Europe or a tropical paradise every year. One day, while doing laundry, I noticed traces of lipstick on one of John's shirts. Ed was 5 years old, and I felt that my 7-year happy marriage was crumbling. I cried, wiped my tears, and assessed my options. John was a good provider, and at that point I decided to go with the wimp solution. Over time, it became clear that he was not only a ladies' man, but also a serial cheater. I found out about his 2 mistresses. I'll tell you later how it happened. In such circumstances, many marriages become unofficial or sometimes declared open marriages, but I was not looking for extramarital affairs. I lived for my children. The reason for this was very interesting. Before John, I dated a man who told me a funny story when we broke up. He, Mark, told me that his mother was a cheater, and he accidentally discovered this when his father became seriously ill and Mark was in college. But his mother did not know that Mark knew about her infidelities. Mark's father was a heavy smoker and became ill with lung cancer. The father was in the dark, and Mark did not want to reveal this secret to him because his father's unfaithful wife, Mark's mother, took good care of him during his illness. Mark didn't want to spoil his father's last days before his death. However, Mark did not like his mother and looked for a job away from her. She lived in Maryland. Mark told me he didn't want an American wife like his mother, so he looked for a wife in Asia. He found an Indonesian Christian named Maria who had converted from Catholicism to Protestantism for Mark's sake. Later, we went to the same church as them since they lived near us. Mark and Mary had two beautiful daughters, and my youngest son married their youngest daughter, Anne. How strange life is. Now I know that Mark and his Indonesian wife are living a happy life, but Mark did not invite his mother to their wedding, and Mark's mother did not attend my son Ed and Anne's wedding. I didn't want my sons to think of their mother as a prostitute, the way Mark thought of his mother. For a long time, I was a devoted wife and a weakling. Other events also forced me to stay with my husband's sad experiences in my distant family and among friends and classmates. It was life in divorce with children and the negative consequences for the lives of children in a broken family. I didn't want the struggles of a broken family to affect my sons, so I stayed married to John. John loved his sons and was a great father at home. This was the second reason why I decided to stay. When Ed was 12 years old, I found a job with a local company. I worked hard, and when Ed was 14, I thought about getting a divorce. I collected some secret money and hired a detective agency to keep an eye on my husband. They found evidence of my husband having an affair with a colleague. The detective agency gave me a DVD of the video and some photographs. They provided information about this woman and her family. Her name was Heather Jones and her husband was Joel Jones, an engineer. They had two daughters. The youngest was the same age as Ed. I received photographs of my husband and children. However, during this time, George was having problems with his friends in high school, and I had to fight with George to prevent his life from getting worse. If I started a divorce, George would become a bad person. I thought about it several times. John ended his relationship with Heather and fought for George. When George went to college, John found himself a new lover. I conducted an investigation with the help of the same detective agency in the spring that I used earlier. I had videos and photos on a flash drive and DVD. George went to college and wanted to become a lawyer. Ed was starting his senior year of high school when my boss offered me a week's training in Calgary, Canada, in September. I had a trip to Banff scheduled for Tuesday as part of my communications training, and I was really interested in the Rocky Mountains before winter. I went to the airport by taxi and flew to Calgary, Alberta on Saturday morning. Training began at the hotel on Sunday morning. Second weekling. Joel. I'm Joel Jones. I was the younger brother in the family. My sister was 8 years older and my brother was 10 years older than me. My father was a laborer who worked with heavy equipment at a car junkyard. My mother worked as a cashier at a supermarket. She started working when I was 12 years old. As a child, life was not easy for us. Our parents had to count every penny, but when my sister and brother left, life became easier. My brother was a good welder, and my sister worked as a salesperson in a store. I did well in high school, did well in math, physics, chemistry, information technology, and got a job with my dad's boss over the summer. During the summer, I worked at a car salvage yard for a month for pocket money and learned how to use good auto accident parts. Thanks to this job, I had a lot of money for the rest of the summer holidays. I was a dark-haired, brown-eyed, tall guy. My teachers suggested that my parents send me to an engineering college, and the family decided to do so. I went to study to become an engineer. I was so good that I received a scholarship to pursue a master's degree. I wasn't a normal guy because I preferred low-fat milk to beer. I got a job at an oil and gas engineering plant in my city. I started at entry level in a workshop and later became a development engineer. We had to develop special tools, machines for oil and gas companies, so that I could use my creativity in my work. Sometimes we had to go to an oil and gas rig to quickly solve serious problems. I loved the challenge this particular job gave me. I dated girls in college, and when I got my master's degree, I found Heather, who graduated with a degree in business administration. She was a brown-haired, green-eyed girl with C-cup breasts. We dated for a year, and I asked her to become my wife, and she agreed. So we got married, and she moved with me to my city. We lived a normal family life in our house in the suburbs and had two beautiful daughters. My wife was at home with our daughters. Although I loved my wife, I did begin to put away a stash for emergencies she didn't know about or have access to when our youngest daughter, June, was born 2 years after Belinda was born. I saved this secret stash for special circumstances because I lived in an environment where there were more divorced people than average. My decision to save money just for myself is rooted in my dysfunctional family background. My parents lived a happy life, but their older children had a lot of troubles. My 10-year-old older brother cheated on his wife, but they made up. Then my brother cheated again, and my sister-in-law divorced him, leaving behind 2 children. She found a good man and married this man who was divorced from his cheating wife and had 3 children. His ex-wife lived with the aggressor, but one day she called the police in time and he was arrested. My brother remarried and they had 2 children. My brother was a serial traitor, so his second wife also divorced him. These children were again raised by their stepfather, but this stepfather did not marry the children's mother in order to receive child support from my brother. My brother moved into a small apartment and paid child support for 4 children. He could only meet his children at my parents' house. My sister was also a fraud, but she got custody of 2 small children, married a good man, and they had a new child. My sister also cheated on her second husband, after which they reconciled, but when my sister cheated again, he divorced her. She was left alone and despicable by 2 ex-husbands who have not forgiven her. The 2 ex-husbands arranged a schedule where they would visit their children on alternating weekends, so my sister would be with either 1 child or 2 children on weekends. Because of this schedule, she could barely date. My friends had a similar situation with divorces, and among my relatives they were also clearly overrepresented. My best friend became addicted to gambling and his wife went to her parents, her brother's family, and her in-laws' parents on weekends to buy food for their children. We invited them over several times for Sundays with the kids and Heather cooked for them. His wife was fed up with her husband's gambling abuse, so she divorced him and went to work. Later, she found a divorced nice guy who had 3 children with his ex-wife. One of my friend's wives also cheated on him, and my friend divorced her with 2 small children. His ex got custody of the children, and he complained to me that he rarely gets to see his children. Among Heather's and my distant relatives were many divorced parents, and later among Heather's friends. Children everywhere, from near and far abroad, lamented their broken lives. I thought it was important to have a secret deposit in case of divorce or family emergency, so I saved 3% of my income. I thought I could surprise my wife with this money I found after 35 years of successful marriage. Heather was at home with June and Belinda. Sex was similar to other couples with children. We had it 3 times a week. We lived a happy life. I worked in a good company, was creative with good colleagues. I had 2 beautiful daughters and a loving wife. I was happy. When June turned 12, Heather went to work for a local company. She worked hard, sometimes even overtime, and praised her work. I heard about her boss, John Worden. Heather told me that her boss recommended a promotion because she was doing such a good job. I knew absolutely nothing about her. When June was 15, Heather took me to her company's Christmas party. My company and its office parties used to take place at the same time, but this year my company's Christmas party took place a week earlier. This was an exception because the following year the parties were held on the same day again. Heather drove me in her car. I think she thought I'd drink a little more, but she should have known that I prefer milk to beer, and that distilled spirits don't appeal to me at all. I took her to my company party, and she saw that I didn't drink much. We sat with a couple at a table. My husband worked in another department of my wife's company. We talked to them a little. When my wife went to the toilet, my colleague looked at me strangely. Later I was introduced to John Ordenham, my wife's boss. He told us that he needed to go home early to his sick wife. She had a high fever due to the flu. We stayed a little longer. I had a stomach problem and had to go to the toilet. I was sitting on the toilet when 2 of my wife's male colleagues came to the toilet to pee. I heard one of them say to the other, "Interesting that Heather's ignorant husband and her ex-lover John met here. The affair has ended for 6 months. John will soon be looking for a new woman and will transfer Heather to another department, another replied. It would be funny if Heather worked with John's ex-lover, Martha Martinez, the first one said, and they laughed. Martha's husbands were as ignorant as Heather's husband is now. I don't want to give them such bad news, said the second speaker. Me too, said the first voice, and they laughed. They left the toilet. I was sitting on the toilet, crushed by bad news. I thought about killing John and Heather, but I knew that John had gone home to his sick wife, so I abandoned those thoughts. I didn't know how, but the idea came to me when I thought about the overrepresentation of divorced relatives, friends, and their children. I have decided to divorce Heather, but I will wait until June graduates from high school. I decided to become a wimp for 3.5 years. Naturally, if Heather had humiliated me, given me diseases, or been an asshole, I would have started the divorce before June's graduation. However, I thought about my secret reserve and was glad that I had acted so wisely. I returned to our table and told my wife that I was not feeling well and that I had to go home. I think Heather was also glad that we got home quickly. I didn't pretend to be in a bad state. Yes, true, but mostly because of Heather's discovered affair. She cuckolded me. I hated her with all my heart, and the love in my heart turned to hate. The next day, I started acting for the Oscars just for the sake of my daughters. 2 of Heather's colleagues were right, and 2 months later Heather was transferred to this department, where John Worden's former lover Martha Martinez worked. Heather told me that she liked her new job in a different department, but she only had a bad relationship with Martha. She complained about Martha several times. I secretly laughed at her. At my workplace, I was having lunch with a colleague from the IT department. Michael Johnson had a second wife and 3 children, and they lived a happy life. We discussed cheating wives. He told me that his first wife was a cheater, and he was lucky because he discovered her cheating before she gave birth. He used secret video cameras, bugs, sent videos to her parents, relatives, friends, acquaintances, and also published these videos on portals. He told me that his ex-wife had found a serious relationship, and they were planning a wedding when he sent a video letter to her fiancé. The wedding was canceled. The ex-fiancé of his ex-wife thanked his colleague for the video and letter. The groom hired a detective firm, and they provided him with evidence that his future wife had another lover. I asked him if he could build a similar spy system in our house. He told me he could collect the files on a spare computer. I could view it with a password, but I had to delete old files. I praised my secret money idea because the activity was financially invisible. While my wife was working and my daughters were in high school, a coworker and I asked for 1 day off and built video and other error detection systems in our home. I checked the file monthly and deleted old files. Belinda was in college and June was in her senior year of high school when I discovered something about a secret spy system. At that time, I was working on an oil rig to solve a complex problem, and I also had to work on weekends. The spy files showed that while I was away, Heather cheated on me. June almost caught them. The guy had to jump out the window. I discovered the activity during my monthly file check in early September. The next day, Wednesday, I had to go to Calgary. Alberta, Canada, is the center of the oil and gas industry, and I had to meet with our partner from the oil and gas company to solve some problems. In addition to this business trip, my boss sent me to a special symposium. The environmental problem has become a strong incentive for the development of new mining methods. The new method involved using drilling tools to extract metallic ore compounds from the depths. Typically, the mining industry builds shafts and tunnels and workers extract ore and coal using mining machines from deep within. The symposium will begin Sunday morning at a hotel in Calgary. The social program was to include a day trip to Banff in the Rocky Mountains on Tuesday. The symposium will end on Saturday. As my boss told me, Joel, this will be an important new market opportunity for our firm. I was full of anger towards my wife, but I could suppress my hatred when I was working, so I went to Canada with hidden hatred in my heart. Page. I was flying to Calgary, Canada, and thinking about my life. I lived with a serial bastard husband traitor and was an exemplary wife and an exemplary mother for 2 sons. My youngest son, Ed, was in his last year of high school. Will John still be a good provider for me in the future, or will he replace me with his younger mistress? These thoughts were running through my head on the plane, and I had a bad vision of my family. I didn't like this weakling role at all. I made a conclusion about myself in my mind. Since I used to be an athlete and still had a strong need for exercise, we equipped the basement with exercise equipment, and I used them often. Sometimes I ran with my sons. My husband used other gyms instead of ours. Sometimes my sons worked out with me on exercise machines. I didn't smoke or drink much and slept enough, so my body was in good shape. I could easily deny 10 years of my age. The problem was collecting candidates for assistance. There were few good partner candidates on the market. Most good husband candidates were involved with girlfriends, boyfriends, or wives. Finding a good partner was a difficult task. However, finding yet another divorced serial cheater, violent, alcohol, substance abuse, gambling abuser was painfully easy. I was trapped without any simple solution. I arrived at the Calgary airport and took a taxi to the hotel where the training was to take place. I was surprised by the reception at the hotel. There were 2 tables of young college students helping the new arrivals. The first table was intended for the participants of the Mountain Symposium, the second for the participants of our training. The software firm simultaneously organized 2 events at the hotel with the same schedule and entertainment programs. The hotel had several bars, restaurants, and meeting rooms. The trip to the Rocky Mountains was routine for Mountain Symposium participants. I was given special vouchers for food and non-alcoholic drinks, but I had to pay for alcoholic drinks out of pocket. I received a name badge, and the girls told me that I had to wear it in the hotel. I received a magnetic key to my room and went to my floor. When I stepped out of the elevator with my suitcase, I was almost petrified with shock. Joel Jones was about to enter the elevator. I could read his name tag, and it was definitely Joel Jones. He politely greeted me and went to the first floor. I remembered him from the photos and videos of the pie company, and over time he has not changed. He was handsome and had only a few gray hairs. I took my room, took a shower, and went to dinner at the hotel restaurant. I wore my badge. I found Joel alone at the table. He was beautiful and sad. I greeted him and asked if I could sit next to him at the table. He agreed, and we introduced ourselves. "We are from the same city, and I know you," I told him. "Oh, and you?" There was genuine surprise in his voice. "My husband's name is John Warden. He's the CEO of your wife's company." His pupils became very narrow. I felt hatred in the air. The waitress came to us for our dinner vouchers and gave us menus. There were 3 types of dishes to choose from, and we asked for sparkling mineral water. I knew I had to be honest and brave. I felt like I could be honest with him, so I said, "I don't like them either, and I didn't like their romance either." The hatred disappeared from his eyes, and a funny confusion appeared on his face, a hint of surprise. After a short hesitation, he asked me directly, "Why are you living with him then?" "I am a responsible mother to 2 sons, just like you are to your 2 daughters," I said, blushing and realizing that I felt something more than just sympathy for him. He had been embarrassed before, but now I was in the same position. He smiled at me and said, "We are in the same boat with the same souls." I realized that there was chemistry between us. I answered him with a smile. The waitress returned with sparkling mineral water and took our order. We chose the same dish. "We have the same taste," Joel noted. We laughed a lot. My husband was a dry person, but Joel had a good sense of humor, as did I. I realized that I was in love with him, and for some reason I felt that I could win him. We talked about an unusual organization because I came for training, and he came for a symposium on the mining industry in the same hotel. He told me that he would go to Edmonton on Monday and Tuesday to sort out some problems at the oil and gas company, and then return to our city. I told him that I would return home on Sunday morning. We were both very excited about going to Banff and the Rockies next week. We had dinner and went to one of the bars. We talked about our children and showed each other pictures of them, and we both knew we were proud of them. We laughed a lot. I felt that he liked me. We agreed to meet at the elevator at 8 o'clock in the morning to have breakfast together. My training and his symposium began at 9 a.m. I returned to my room and imagined him in my sexual fantasies. I didn't feel guilty about a serial cheater like John or a cheater like Heather. I thought Joel would be a good second chance for me. The next day, we met at the elevator and went to a restaurant where there was a buffet. Joel only drank milk. He told me that he prefers milk to beer. I found this very interesting. We went to our programs, I went to training, and he went to a symposium on the mining industry. We met at lunch. We avoided discussing domestic problems and talked about our work. Joel's company was looking for new market opportunities for specialty ore extraction using drilling technology, and the symposium was dedicated to this. After the afternoon sessions, we met again for dinner. We were cheerful and laughed a lot. Now I know that both felt free. After dinner, we went to the bar to talk. There he began a serious conversation. "Dear Beth, I am in such a mood that I want to break my promise a year early. I swore to myself that I would wait until my youngest daughter June graduated from high school before I started the divorce." I blushed with happiness and the possibility that my secret dream would come true. I surrounded him with my pheromones. He noticed this. I was honest with him. "I wanted a divorce 3.5 years ago," I said. Joel looked surprised. "Why didn't you do it?" "My eldest son is having problems. John ended his relationship with your wife, Heather, to help our son, George." He was truly surprised. "Oh, I see. Did you succeed?" "Yes, in the end, we succeeded, and I wanted to forgive John everything when we saved George because he was with us. However, he now has a young mistress. I used the same detective agency for the second time. I have a video and photographs of your wife and my husband, and now evidence of his new young mistress." He looked at me with interest and said, "I told you yesterday that we are in the same boat. Are you afraid that he will replace you with her? I don't understand your husband. You look younger than your age. Beth, you are a cheerful, cheerful woman." I blushed again. "Thank you for the compliment. Yes, I'm not confident in my marriage. I don't trust John." I became bolder and continued. "However, divorce is not an easy decision for a woman over 40. Finding a good partner at this age is difficult." He understood me completely and smiled with warm sympathy. He said, "Don't think that it's easy for us men to find a good partner. There may be more choice, but the likelihood of choosing a defective product is also greater." We laughed a little. I knew he thought I wouldn't be a defective product to him. We took the elevator to our floor. When we got out of the elevator, the corridor was empty, so we turned to each other and, on impulse, hugged, then kissed. After the kiss, I told him, "Joel, we are free. We are not cheating. They are our spouses who are cheating." He didn't answer, just kissed me again. "Joel, I went to Edmonton after the symposium to solve some problems at an oil and gas company. Beth sent me the first email from our city when she returned home. She wrote, 'I love you and please don't forget that I will start the divorce in June and you will follow me in 3 months. I will write you another email next week.' I replied, 'It will be difficult for you to wait a whole year. I love you too.' We discussed our future and decided together at the hotel. Beth will begin her divorce next year in June, and I will follow her 3 months later. We agreed to meet by chance so that Beth could tell everyone that she knew me from videos and photographs from the detective agency, and that is why she knows me. This would be a white lie for our families. We weren't supposed to date before my divorce started. We agreed to write each other 1 email per week, except in emergencies. I must emphasize that it was very difficult for both of us, but we managed. The symposium was a great success for our company because a Finnish mining company wanted to use our machines and tools for nickel mining. They developed a special mining technique that uses bacteria to extract nickel from the ore, and drilling tools were required to extract the nickel solution from the depths. I traveled to Finland several times to set up our machines and tools. This nickel production was a financial success for both our partner and our company. I was coming home from my daughter and using Heather as a free girlfriend. I considered her a woman of easy virtue in my mind. After meeting Beth, my hatred leveled off, and I checked my tracking system weekly at work. But Heather didn't take any more lovers to our house after the guy next door. She may have had other lovers at work, but there weren't any in the house, according to my bugs and video cameras. I wanted to use video files to avoid court-ordered counseling sessions. I wrote to Beth in an email that I was thinking about buying a tape measure so I could cut off an inch every day until the divorce started. She replied that she had laughed at my idea for a long time. I was glad to find a woman with such a good sense of humor as Beth. Heather had no sense of humor. While Belinda was in college to become a math teacher, my youngest daughter, June, wanted to become a nurse, so she was also going to college. When she graduated from high school, I went to her graduation with Heather. Beth sent me the most important email after her son's graduation, writing, "I gave John the divorce papers, and he was happy about it. He said he would have given me the divorce papers himself if Ed had gone to college. That damn bastard. I was right about him. I rented a 2-room apartment. Thank you for waiting for me. You will be with me soon. I love you." Meanwhile, in college, Belinda found herself a guy for a serious relationship from our city. He was a brash and loud guy. I didn't like him, but I didn't express my opinion to Belinda, who thought she had found the right man. Beth and I planned for a 3-month delay, but how those 3 months turned into 2.5, I'll tell you now. Belinda often brought Jack to our house, but sometimes they went to Jack's parents. When he was with us, he acted very impudently with me. I was tolerant of him for the sake of my daughter. Heather liked him. The last 2 months passed slowly before I finally went to see a divorce lawyer. Beth and I chose different lawyers to avoid any connection between us. The lawyer told me that he would be ready with the documents within 2 weeks. I could start the divorce whenever I wanted. I wrote this to Beth. She replied that she had found an apartment for me 3 buildings away from hers, and there was a supermarket between them. She wrote that we could meet there, by chance, after my divorce began. I used the secret money and rented the recommended apartment for 4 months and moved some of my personal belongings there. Soon after, I had to go to Finland for a week to sort out some problems. When I got back and went to work, I checked my tracking system as usual. I wanted to delete the files, but I almost fell out of my chair when I looked more closely at the video files. Brash Jack Scudery, my eldest daughter's right man, was the lover of my cheating wife. Since our divorce was about to begin, Heather could have had a lover like the alien from the movie Alien, or even a green UFO in her collection. I didn't care. However, my daughter's happiness was one of the most important things in my life, so I was completely angry at Heather and Jack. I saved the files on a flash drive. I emailed Beth. I knew she checked her email several times a day in case of an emergency in the last few days. I was right, and she quickly responded, "Joel, you need to speed up the divorce process. You should move into your apartment tomorrow. You should invite your daughters to your apartment for a movie night. You have enough room for 3 of you for the week before college starts. Good luck. I love you." I called my lawyer from work and asked for divorce papers on Friday. I asked my boss for the next day off due to family issues. When Heather left for work, I moved many of my personal belongings into the apartment. My daughters left home before Heather, so they didn't suspect anything. I called them at lunchtime and told them to meet me at the building where my apartment was. We went up to the apartment. They understood that I wanted a divorce, but they were shocked, sad, and silent. We sat in front of my laptop, and I inserted the flash drive into the laptop. Belinda asked me, "Dad, what do you want to show us?" I responded with a question. "Have you ever watched an adult video?" "Dad, we live in the 21st century," my daughters answered together. "These films will be very funny with interesting actors," I said. Belinda began to understand something, but June was still a little puzzled. I started playing the video. My 2 daughters flared with anger. First Belinda, then June began to cry loudly when they saw the betrayal. "Dad, who are these people? I don't have a mother anymore, and I don't have a boyfriend." Belinda sobbed. "Dad, we are with you," June said in a crying voice. "I don't want to live with my mother. I don't have a mother anymore," Belinda said. June then added, still crying, "Dad, I want to live with you until I go to nursing college. I'm not coming back to our house." "Are we staying here with you?" Belinda asked. "We need to go home to get your most important things before she gets home from work," I told them. So we brought many of my daughter's personal belongings in mine and Belinda's cars. We put everything in a pile in my apartment. Belinda called Jack later. I heard her say, "Dear bastard, I wish you pleasure with your cougar. Go to hell." She then ended the call. When Heather got home, she tried to call June, Belinda, and me, but we didn't answer. The next day she tried again, but when she received the divorce papers and stopped calling, she understood everything. I think Jack Scuderi told her too. My daughters told me they would never speak to their mother again. They only love me. I was proud of my daughters, and every night when I went to bed, I secretly cried a little with pride and tenderness. I wrote to Beth about everything, but without my daughters noticing. Beth wrote that her sons suspected something about John's mistress because they told her they preferred her to their father. The following week, I checked the tracking system and found that Heather had been crying at home all day after returning from work. My daughters and I did not feel any regret for her. Jack Scuderi no longer appeared on videotape. Later, while she was at work, I retrieved some of my personal belongings from the house, and Michael Johnson and I dismantled the surveillance system. Beth wrote that she had seen me several times with my daughters, but did not want to bother us. When our children and Beth's sons headed off to college, Beth and I met, by chance, in front of a local supermarket, as we had agreed by email. We hugged, smiling, and kissed. Page. I divorced my bastard husband first so he could marry his 21-year younger mistress. My sons were at their wedding and said it was very strange for them. We started our life together even though Joel was not yet divorced. Sex was very interesting for us because Joel was using his wife, but now he was making love. We sometimes got confused in our selflessness, but our sense of humor solved all the awkward situations. Heather didn't fight for a dead horse, for her dead marriage, so 3 months after my divorce, Joel became free and asked me to become his wife. Without hesitation, I said yes. I got good money from the divorce and John paid off 50% of the share of our house. Joel and Heather sold their house and split everything equally. We were able to buy a beautiful new house and we had a gym in the basement. We organized a big wedding. My parents were there. My father walked me down the aisle to Joel at our church. Joel's parents were very old, but they attended our wedding. Our children were there too, and all 4 said they were happy for us. Our friends and relatives were there too. My sons immediately fell in love with Joel, and Joel's daughters found me very cute. Joel's daughters did not speak to their mother at all. We went to Kenya on our honeymoon. We were on the Indian Ocean coast and took part in several day safaris. We admired the magnificent African animals. When we got home, I told my husband that I wanted to give him 3 unexpected surprises. I read that Down syndrome can be detected through a blood test and told Joel about it. While I was waiting for Joel alone, I read a lot of interesting things on the internet. Among other things, I noted the scientific results of a blood test for Down syndrome. I told him that we could try to have a child together with this new scientific opportunity. He was surprised at first, but supported me, and we began producing a child. I took prenatal vitamins and avoided the liver. The first test at the 10th week showed that the embryo had Down syndrome, and a repeat test at the 11th week confirmed the result of the first. The doctors said that I needed to get rid of the pregnancy. We were depressed, but the doctors explained that the likelihood of Down syndrome is the same for a certain age group and does not depend on the number of pregnancies. So they said we could try again after a short break. We waited a little and started making a baby again. This time both tests were negative, and we had twins from 2 eggs, a girl, Wendy, and a boy, Eric. We laughed a lot later that Joel had only daughters, and I only had sons, but we had a common son and a common daughter. We made love often during my pregnancy. When labor began, the doctors did not take any risks, and I gave birth to twins by cesarean section. A few weeks before my husband's birthday, I told him I wanted to give him a second surprise. He was confused. I told him that he should take samples from our children and himself for a DNA test. He said it wasn't necessary. I said that this was my second surprise, and he laughed and went into the laboratory. The results were positive and came a few days before his birthday, and I told him that this was his biggest birthday gift from me and gave him a big hug. He asked what my third surprise would be because he was very curious. I replied that he would find out in a year and a half, but I would keep it a secret until the right time. Joel's daughter Belinda found a nice guy, and they found a job in our city. They were planning a wedding. Colin worked at a local bank. We joked with them, saying that if they don't babysit our children, we won't babysit their children. Belinda and June still had not spoken to their mother. Belinda didn't invite Heather to her wedding. My sons talked to their father, but I was their main parent. John and his young wife had a girl, and a year later another girl was born. Ed wanted to become an architect and studied hard in college. When he graduated from college, he met my old friend's daughter. Anne was a beautiful European woman. We had a big wedding that year. John was there with his new wife, but Joel and I successfully avoided them. Joel and I, John and Anne's father, Mark, paid for the wedding together. The holiday company organized the ceremony and dealt well with the problem of divorcees. Ed got a job at a local firm. June graduated from nursing college, and she and George fell in love. George got a good job in our city. Joel and I laughed a lot when George and June told us about their wedding plans. Our families will be linked to each other twice. We jokingly told the other two couples the same thing we told Belinda and her husband about babysitters. They all agreed, smiling. We were happy to have 4 grown children with a good sense of humor. George and June's wedding was a fun event. John and his young wife Nancy were there, and although Joel and I were polite to them, we tried to avoid them. John paid half the cost of the wedding, so they had the right to be there. However, George and June, like us, tried to communicate with them as little as possible. Joel and I told our 4 children about Heather and John's affair. I showed them my evidence from the detective agency. This evidence was a good cover. I told them that I knew Joel from videos and photographs from the detective agency, so he was not a stranger to me at the chance meeting in the supermarket. My older sons and Joel's daughters found out that John and Heather were serial cheaters. We successfully hid our meeting in Calgary from others. Moreover, even George and June did not know our secret, despite the fact that they lived together. June told us that, like her sister, she did not want to meet her mother. We later found out that John gave the wedding photos to Heather at work, so she got information about us. Before the new child production, I carried out my last surprise against my new husband. Before I start talking about this, I must discuss the nature of happiness. The first happiness is an easily found thing. It arrives like a daily scheduled train, and we are glad when it arrives. We tend to think of a transport disaster when it does not arrive. Yes, the first happiness usually happens when we are young, and we are all looking for the one. The second happiness is of a different kind. It must be fought for, and therefore it is more valuable than the first. We also protect it better. The intensity of love decreases over time in a marriage, and after a certain period it settles at a level and remains there. This level may be higher or lower in different marriages. However, marriage can either be a routine practice or, if you make it so, an interesting challenge. As Joel and I started our new lives, our love grew. There were no secrets in our family, and everyone knew about the infidelities of our former spouses. We strived to make our marriage unique, happy, and based on mutual trust and support. Joel and I had twins, Wendy and Eric, who filled our home with laughter and joy. Joel was a wonderful father, and his love for his children only intensified my feelings for him. We supported each other in all endeavors and never allowed the past to influence our present and future. Our older children, Belinda, June, George, and Ed, also found their own paths in life. Belinda married Colin, and June and George prepared for their wedding. Joel and I celebrated our children's successes, were proud of their achievements, and were always there to support them in difficult times. Our family evenings were filled with warmth and joy. We often got together, discussed the past day, and made plans for the future. Joel always made time for his children, and his care and love made him a wonderful father. We strived to create an environment for our children where they could feel safe and confident in our support. Every year we have new family traditions. Every Christmas we went to the skating rink to go ice skating as a family. It became our special time where we could enjoy each other's company and create unforgettable memories. In the summer, we had outdoor picnics where the kids could run and play, and Joel and I enjoyed the peace and quiet. Our home was always open to friends and relatives. We loved having parties where everyone could have fun and relax. At such moments, I felt that our family was truly happy and that we were in the right place in our lives. One day, when Wendy and Eric were 5 years old, I felt unwell. Joel immediately noticed my condition and insisted on seeing a doctor. It turned out that I had minor health problems, but thanks to his care and attention, I quickly recovered. His support during this period was invaluable to me. Joel was always there when I needed him. His love and care helped me cope with difficulties and continue to move forward. We knew we could rely on each other in any situation, and this made our marriage stronger. Over time, I returned to work at my company. Joel supported me in all my endeavors and was always willing to help with the children so I could focus on my career. We both wanted to grow professionally and understood how important it was to support each other in this. My work brought me pleasure, and I felt that I could make a significant contribution to the development of the company. Joel was also progressing well in his career, and we were proud of his accomplishments. Together, we made plans for the future and dreamed about how we would spend our time when our children grew up and we had more free time. Finally, the day came when I had to reveal my third surprise to Joel. I prepared a special dinner and invited him to our favorite restaurant. Joel was intrigued and couldn't wait to hear what I had to say. "Joel, you know that I love you more than anything in this world. We've been through a lot, and we've always supported each other. Today, I want to give you a special gift," I began. Joel looked at me with love and expectation. I took an envelope out of my bag and handed it to him. "Open it," I said with a smile. Joel opened the envelope and took out 2 tickets for a trip around the world. His eyes lit up with joy and surprise. "This is my third surprise for you. I want us to go on this journey together to see the world and create new unforgettable memories," I said. Joel was shocked and touched. He hugged me and said, "Beth, you are an amazing woman. I am so happy that we are together. This journey will be the beginning of a new stage in our lives." Our trip around the world was an unforgettable adventure. We visited many countries, saw many amazing places, and got to know different cultures. This trip strengthened our bond and allowed us to see the world from a new perspective. Returning home, we knew that many more happy moments and new challenges awaited us. We were ready for them because we knew that we could overcome any difficulties if we were together. Our children also continued to delight us with their successes. Belinda and Colin became the parents of a beautiful baby. June and George also planned to expand their family. Joel and I were happy that we could be a part of their lives and support them in everything. Life went on, and we knew that our marriage was not just a union of 2 people, but a union of 2 souls who found each other and created a happy family together. We were grateful for every moment we spent together and knew that many more wonderful years filled with love and joy awaited us. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.